Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey. We're here with our round 11 preview and best bet show for Magic Round, where we'll break down each game, and of course Winnie will have his best bets for you. Also, without further ado, let me welcome in that man. Winnie, how are you? And I'm also hearing rumors of a very special Thursday show you have planned for this marvelous round.
I'm okay, mate. I know you put me in a wizard hat for this special round in the graphic, but the results lately would be more, it should be more like a jester hat. It's been a tough time, to be perfectly fair. And I dedicated the final 15 or 20 minutes to the recap to really talk about this super slide in the tipping results. I got very in-depth there and passionate into how I'm doing things, why I'm doing things, and responding to the most common complaints. So I really don't need to repeat it all. Go back and check that out if you're not someone that usually watches the recap. I do want to say straight away, thank you to everyone that sent me. I got so many kind, supportive comments and messages in the last few days. I actually felt embarrassed, like, I was probably too dramatic, like talking about all the hate, because it's actually been overwhelming, the number of positive messages I've gotten as well. And you guys are the ones I do it for. And there's people out there saying like, oh, the pod's still worth listening to, even if the tips don't hit, which is awesome to hear. But I want to assure you guys, I don't see it that way. I expect the pod to have winning weeks every single week. I know you can't get that, but I expect going into every week that we're going to win every month, every season, of course. So I'm bitterly disappointed when it doesn't go that way. The other thing is, when I go 3-0, people will say you did an awesome job. When I go 0-3, people will say horrible job. But the real truth is I put in the same effort and do the same work every week. And the results, unfortunately, is just part of the game. But there's something I do want to make clear before we start this one, just in fairness to everyone that tunes in and takes my best bets into account. And because I am under, immense pressure, a lot of which admittedly I put on myself. But as I said on Sunday, I really am sticking to the same process. There are no drastic changes. That might not be what everyone wants to hear, but I'm just giving you that fair warning that the best bets that you're going to hear are coming from the same guy that has only hit 2 in the last 13. Yes, I reevaluate every team, especially when I get a game wrong. I do definitely look at whether my opinion on a side was too high. But as for the whole stop backing team ABC, start backing team XYZ, or same for who to fade, who not to fade, I don't buy into that. All 16 teams are viable options going into the round, depending on how I see the game and what the line is.
Perfect, mate. Well, with that in mind, let us not make anyone wait any longer. What have you got for us this round in the way of best bets?
So it is a special week. You said before we're going to do a Thursday show, or that you've got the night off. You'll be at Women's Origin. You'll be in Brisbane, and I'm going to catch up with you again, which is fantastic. Can't wait. And I'll talk about the punt party later. But we are going to do the pod in 2 parts. But tonight is your traditional pod, except I'm only going to share my handicap for Friday and Saturday. So 5 games worth of handicaps. So the best bets that I'm about to unveil will only be what I would have for Friday, Saturday. The triple header Sunday, I'm going to share my thoughts on the Thursday pod. In addition to that, Nakul is going to join me, and you know that his expertise is try scorer tips. We have 1 or 2 other guest contributors on that show that I want to actually keep secret, but people who are very beloved NRL contributors in the TryPod group. Let me say that. So let's call this Best Bets Part 1. I had another note too. I got the feed working. If people have been watching this on YouTube and you actually prefer Spotify, it's been on Spotify for the last week. In fact, some exciting news. This is now coming through as a video on Spotify for the first ever time in pod history, which is funny to me because it occurred to me, if you're just someone who's only ever listened, you might have gotten a very rude shock last week when you suddenly saw my face and Clarky's face. And if you are one of those people who've never seen my face before, you're probably thinking, geez, he's taking the losing really badly. But I will say, don't worry. Unfortunately, I just always look like this. I just have one best bet. I am being extra selective in these tough times, I think, is how you go about it. But remember, that is from the first 5 games. So here it is. Get your accounts ready if you want to go against this potentially. I'm taking the Bulldogs in the very first game, and I'm taking them -3.5 at $1.90. It's a pretty simple handicap. I'm taking my eyes off the screen because I'm literally backing it on Dabble right now. It's also available on Better. The spine is a clear difference for me. And in particular, position 6 and 9, Burton and Marnie, clear advantage over Canberra. And I think that makes the difference for the Doggies by getting at least one try separation in the margin, which is all you need when you lay 3.5. I'll get into that game more in depth shortly because that is our first game. But Clarkey, just confirm to the people who are only listening, as I said those picks, or said that pick, I was not holding a gun, pointing it at anybody and saying that you have to bet a big amount of money on that, was I?
No, you certainly were not. I can confirm there was no AK-47 Glocks or RPGs that I noticed to see on your screen anyway. So if, as you said, if people want to go against it, they can certainly do as much there. But for what it's worth, I do like the Doggies in that game also. Speaking of, we'll get to that in just a moment. We'll go game by game through Magic Round. I'll give my takes for Sunday quickly because I've already prepared those notes. Yours will be the following day on Thursday. But before we get to that, we're going to cross exclusively to one of the best-looking CEOs in the country. It is Mr. Tristan Merlehan from TopSport.
Question from James, is Spotify live? No, that would be cool. I reckon we'll be able to get there one day, but we don't broadcast on Spotify live, but the video does go up there as well as the audio. And before I throw to Tristan, someone said in the comments yesterday, mate, I listened to your best bets last week. I didn't agree with the reason that you gave for one of them. So I bet on the other side and I won. And I just thought, how reasonable is that?
Simple.
That's perfectly reasonable to me. That doesn't hurt my feelings. That's fine. That's what I suggest anyone does. Make your decision what you do with your money. All right. Are you going to send any Tristan's way? Let's have a listen and find out where the money has been that has been received over the counter so far for Magic Round.
G'day everyone, it's Tristan Merlehan here from Top Sport, and we're getting to Magic Round. But before we get on to that, just a quick recap of the weekend just gone. It was a pretty ugly one from our perspective where punters got on a bit of a roll, and we laid a pretty big multi with all the try scorers, which happened to be the last leg of AJ Brimson. So that, was a little bit of a silver lining when that lobbed on the last game of the round. But it was a great win by my Titans. Unfortunately, a few injuries, which it means they got a very different looking side for this round. But just having a look at the other games, the worst result actually by a significant margin was the Panthers against the Bulldogs. Obviously, a bit of weather around in Sydney, but just the fact the Bulldogs hung tough. There was plenty of action on them at the plus, and at halftime or just before halftime, we felt in a really reasonably comfortable position until Cleary went off, and that obviously changed everything from there. The Sharks-Melbourne game was a really tricky one to price with all the ins and outs. So that one fell in a very awkward spot, although there was a bit of a push for the Storm late with no Hines. But just going on to this weekend now, just having a quick look at the games and the market moves. So the biggest move by a significant margin has been the Titans against the Knights. The Knights had a few players in doubt and they look to have been named, whereas the Titans, all the players that were expected to be out and no Jaden Campbell eventuated. So that line's gone from 2.5 out to 6.5. We laid it all the way out. Once we have got to that 6.5 mark, though, there has been a little bit of a pushback for the Titans. The other game that's moved has been Penrith against the Warriors. That's been 10.5 out to 13.5 since we opened the markets. And the Dolphins, they've gone from -8 to -10.5. So a few decent sized moves, not necessarily all off the backs of the teams getting announced today. The Titans one certainly, but the other games have been a bit of a push, a consistent push since Monday. So obviously, Magic Round, looking forward to catching up with a few of you if you're coming to the punt party with Jacob as well. So that's going to be a bit of fun. Hopefully we get some good games of footy. Hopefully the weather stays nice, and it'd be nice to see plenty of people out there on Sunday. Good luck, and obviously gamble responsibly.
Looking forward to the punt party again. Just to remind everyone, it is a crazy dress up, so come in your wildest costumes. We're all going to be dressing up. Make sure you come in whatever it is, but it's a real party vibe there, so dress up for sure. We do also have an extra plan with Top Sport for Magic. Am I allowed to announce the post we've got coming later today now?
Yeah, sure. Let people know.
Perfect. All right. So anyone that's here from my Facebook and Instagram specifically, and to the TryPod wider family as well, Jacob and I are teaming up with Top Sport, and we're going to do a create your own custom multi for Magic Round. We're looking to post that later tonight around the 7:30 mark. Basically how it will entail, not every single market will be able to be priced up. There will be some terms and conditions, but essentially as long as it's within reason and within scope of what Top Sport can offer, then comment what you want for a multi for Magic Round, get as creative as you like, and Tristan and the team will price it up for you, which should make the weekend a little bit more exciting for you. That'll be coming later today.
People in the TryPod group are very familiar with being able to submit custom combinations for big sporting events. I don't know if we've ever done Magic Round itself, but I'll share your post into my group too, so that people will see that and they can put their submissions forward, and then there'll be a smorgasbord of follower selections just to give you that many possible juicy combos for the weekend. In addition, I'm going to make a special custom market. You may remember me as the inventor of Jersey Bingo, which was for Magic Round 2 years ago. It didn't exist before that. Now it runs every week, and I don't get any royalties. I should have trademarked it, but we'll see what I come up with this week. I'll share that on Thursday. I'm even going to share my mixed matchup on Thursday too. And I know we haven't got to Friday yet, but I'm actually going to have not one but two better SGMs this weekend. And if you've noticed, the odds have been just second to none the last couple of weeks. So check them out as well. It gives you twice as much to look out for this weekend. It's a special weekend, and we are treating it as such.
Yeah, it is a very special weekend. It was a great idea, made by the Super League and then adopted by the NRL. Maddie Blanche from Facebook says, Clarkey, oversized belt buckle confirmed. Unfortunately, that's actually not a part of the special dress up. That's just what I wear daily, and I cop it from so many people.
Tuck his shirt in. Yes. $1.20.
Yeah, that is
Gold
paying
chain.
very. Oh, that's slightly more. I only busted that out because I was feeling dangerous in round 1 for the Dragons.
If you're feeling yourself.
Yeah, I guess it depends what that line looks like for the Titans game. But that will have a bit of value about it if that is a custom multi on the top sport. All right, let's jump into it, mate. Game 1, Friday, 6 p.m. It's Raiders v Bulldogs. The line is set at -2.5 against the Doggies. For the Raiders, they welcome back Jordan Rapana. No significant changes there for the Doggies. These sides did meet twice last year, and the Raiders won both of them. And they both come into this one having won 3 of their last 5. The Raiders have won their last 3 in a row at Magic Round, whilst the Bulldogs have actually never won at the event. So they are due a win here at Magic Round, Winnie, and you reckon the Doggies can get the job done?
I do. The Raiders have come off a fantastic comeback for sure, and they would have felt great about themselves going into the bye, especially given the fact that they'd lost their halfback. They had a very young squad, which was much publicised, and had been blown out in back-to-back games, Canberra, at the hands of Brisbane and Cronulla, and looked like a third straight in Manly, 20-0 down before they turned it all around. And getting a bye to freshen up before this game is definitely beneficial. You compare that to the Dogs, who made the toughest road trip in the NRL. Now, the road part of it isn't tough. It's not a long trip out to Penrith, but to go and face the Panthers at home, a place where Canterbury hasn't come close for 4 years at least. And they did just that last week, to be fair, which does say a bit about Canterbury's progression this season. And I think they're a real footy team and a side that can absolutely play finals this year. I said this, I actually had them in my 8 before the year, but I wonder how many people agree with me at this point. Like, let me know, do you guys agree the Dogs will make finals, or is the jury still out for you? I'd expect them to win a game like this, and they're already in the 8. And, I actually think it's more likely than not that they will finish there. Of course, I wasn't highly impressed with the performance against Penrith. The 6-point margin's a little deceiving, very wet weather, a Cleary first half injury, some late tries played a part. But what I also want to note about this game, which is just a cool element of Magic Round, of course, is that when I break down these games, you'll often hear me say something like, if these teams met on a neutral venue, and the fact that we get 2 non-Queensland teams playing, which is one of 4 games like that, we get a true neutral. So I think that the Dogs are at least 6 points better than Canberra, and that is factoring in Canterbury's basically full strength, and the Raiders, since losing Fogarty, I think are closer to a bottom 4 side, the Manly result notwithstanding. Now, give the Raiders 1.5 points for the bye, but I'd still be above a 4-point handicap in this game. So clearly at 3.5, I like the Dogs, and I talked about the biggest advantage, like Burton versus Strange. Burton, I think, is a true star and a player that can really grab the 6 jersey for New South Wales with both hands if he can continue this sort of form. And Marnie is still like a significantly better player, more impactful player than a Danny Levi. I've never really been high on Rapana, like a massive fan of him as a player and his career, but fullback is such a loaded position in the NRL, and I don't think Rapana is among the best at that position. Not that Tracy's great, but I still prefer Tracy. And look, Kyle Weeks in fairness probably is a better 7 than Hutchison, but who isn't? I'm sorry, like the Dogs lose that matchup every week. But Weeks still only just got in there. The rest of the teams, outside backs, maybe a little edge to Canterbury just because I don't think many players in the whole competition are going any better than Stephen Crichton right now. But Raiders have got plenty of players that are a handful. Tomoko standing out to me. And the forward packs and benches, I think, are even as well. But when you get an even battle in the forwards and the backs, it does come down to the spine, and it ultimately can just be one additional moment of execution, is that one extra try, which is all we really need the Dogs to win by. One unconverted try margin gets us home here. So it's a pretty straightforward handicap, which means you can hear me break it down and you can decide whether the Bulldogs can conjure one more try than the Raiders. I did throw in a little magical reference there if anyone caught it.
I didn't catch it, but I'm a little bit slow. I basically agree with everything you said there, mate. And I think the only reason this line doesn't sit a bit larger is because there's still that hesitation factor on the Bulldogs because they have been poor for so many years, and there's not enough solid data to really indicate they've turned the corner. Whilst as footy fans, and you and I watch every single game, we both agree we've kind of seen them turn the corner a little bit this year and think they can start to kick on with things. You mentioned it's a neutral venue. Absolutely it is. Both sides have 27 and 8% win rates at Suncorp over history. I won't be looking too much into home stats this week, Winnie, because most of it is sides versus the Broncos being Suncorp. But I did find that interesting that it's literally a completely neutral venue. There is no advantage there to either side. And I like the Bulldogs in this one. For mine, I believe the Raiders got away with it, and they should be on a 3-game losing streak, if not for a Manly collapse. And what turns me off that is we saw Manly collapse against the Dolphins in the very next week. So although the Raiders do have that win there, which kind of alleviates the pressure of a 3-game losing streak, I actually consider that a little bit of an outlier. I went to the Bulldogs defense last year against the Panthers, and I called it out as being exceptional this year. And I think with the Raiders having an inexperienced spine, which you broke down so brilliantly there, I just don't see where the points come from. This is a Bulldogs side that does defend really well. A Panthers side that does still have a lot of strike and power, even without Nathan Cleary. Only managed 3 tries on them. And so all things considered, the Raiders' inexperience will lead them to probably overplaying their hand a little bit or playing too conservatively. Either one plays into the Doggies' favour there with their solid defense. You look at the Raiders, they had 10 points in their last 2 games combined prior to that Manly win, which, as I said, I am considering a little bit of an outlier. I'm not going to say they were lucky or they didn't deserve the victory, but we now know Manly does let sides back into the game. And we did see the Raiders get quite a few lucky tries, you could say, where Manly knocked on, and it kind of just fell perfectly into Elliott Whitehead's lap to run with no one in front of him. Stuff like that doesn't happen too often in footy. So I like the Bulldogs here. The only positive I could find for the Raiders is that they are coming off the bye. You already mentioned what that's worth to you. To me, it's not worth too much. So I'm going Doggies at the line as well. I think Doggies will win here well. Alrighty, second game is also on Friday at 8 p.m. It's the Sea Eagles v Broncos, and the line is set at minus 11.5 against the Broncos, who welcome back Jock Madden. Billy Walters is out, so that means Tyson Smoothie starts and Blake Moser moves to the bench. Meanwhile, for Manly, we know they're without Tom Trbojevic. That means Tolatau Kola moves to fullback and Hamoli Olakawatu returns from his suspension. These sides meet for the first time this year, Winnie. In this corresponding fixture last year, the Broncos won 32 points to 6, and they do come into this game having won 4 of their last 5, with Manly only winning 2 of their last 5. So who do you like in this one?
Let me address Colt's comment there. Look, people can call me all sorts of names and I'll accept it, but don't use the M word around here, mate. Cole, I know he's just being supportive, but but calling my best bet immoral. Don't do it, mate. It doesn't matter how confident we might be in a run like this. It's going to take something. It's going to take something significant to turn the tide. So I'll take any win, any way we can get it. A 4-point win is just fine. I've got a fair bit to say about this one, actually, Clarky. Maybe because I'm much maligned for my read on Brisbane games, but also because of the market moves here. So I want to shout out the Undertaker. He can also be called the Early Taker. Caught 365 absolutely napping and shared it in our group. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the story behind that. So Undertaker messages me, must have been Friday, and says, look, I know you don't give out early plays, but you tell me Brisbane minus 4.5 against Manly doesn't points. That's right. Brisbane was minus 4.5 last Friday, to which I said that can't be updating Turbo being out, and Maddie said that's right. That 365 had 4.5 before Manly played. Then you get Manly blowing a lead, losing Turbo. So clearly the line should still be 4.5. And I'm thinking to myself, that's still too low. And I said, I reckon Bet365, an international bookie, seeing Manly as the designated home team, had calculated that line not knowing it was at Suncorp. So sure enough, now it's 11.5. And if you followed Maddie's post in the group, well done to you, sitting on an outstanding bet. And 365 are well worth having for the opportunities you can find there. And there is a link to 365 in our recommended bookies text in the show description. As for us, we're looking at the game on a Tuesday, and we've got to factor in what the current line sits at 5:30 p.m. And I got to see Manly in person. I was at Suncorp last week, and I'm going to be pretty harsh. They are flat track bullies. They look as good as any side in the comp when their tails are up, but they can fall to pieces just as easily when things go against them. And let's do a review of recent form. And Maddie's in the chat, so you can defend your boys, and we'll put your comments up on screen, Maddie. But tell me if what I say next is unfair. Yes, you beat Penrith convincingly, and Manly fans are hanging their hat on that win, but it was a home game, a record game for DCE, and there was no Nathan Cleary. Then you get a draw in New Zealand. Well, unfortunately, that result is looking less and less impressive every week. I could say you went over and got a draw as a 7.5-point underdog, and I could also say, my best bet was New Zealand that day, so you definitely exceeded my expectations. But I could also spin it that Manly was up 16-0 and up 8 with 2 minutes to go and didn't win. That's not great. Lucky win versus the Titans, which I said all along. I said it straight after the game, and I've been saying it since. And then you lost to an undermanned Canberra side when you were winning by 20-0. That is Manly. Before losing last week, as we saw, went up 10 to an undermanned Dolphins side, who Maddie says, are fraudulent, but still the Finns were victorious last week. So my point is, I suppose, after Manly won, in Vegas and then beat the Roosters in round 2, I was getting all these people tagging me saying Manly is going to make top 4. And I haven't had anyone tagging me recently saying that. So honestly, interested to hear where Manly are at, or what, have I been too harsh there? Now, Turbo being out is so massive. You could say Manly's somewhat used to it, unfortunately, because it has been somewhat of a repeat occurrence over the last 3 or 4 years. And you can share the stats. I have a feeling you're going to have some stats for us with that. Saab, a decent loss as well. Hamoli Olukwatu is a huge in, though. I think he's a player that would be in my Blues team, coming from a Queenslander, but might need a big fortnight to actually secure that, because plenty of edge forwards going pretty well for the Blues. Probably one position that they don't have the injuries at the moment. Let's talk about Brisbane. I will maintain, as I did on Sunday, I was comfortable with that best bet against them last week with Para, and I have argued with a few people on the point that Brisbane are scoring an unsustainable number of long-range tries, and including an out-of-this-world number of tries where they either intercept the ball or pick up a drop ball and return it the length of the field, or at least half the length of the field. It actually seems to me like Brisbane are scoring a very high number of tries off kicks as well, which is not the most sustainable way to score either. I'm well aware they have the most electric fullback in the comp, several other dynamic athletes in the outside back. So I'm not saying Brisbane shouldn't score a lot of tries like this, shouldn't lead the competition in those stats, but I'm just saying that they cannot maintain this current rate, which included not one but 2 70-meter plus tries from Parramatta dropped balls in the rain last week. Just a word of warning. You bet on Brisbane every week. You won't get that every week. You might get it here or there, but I would probably say Brisbane scored more times from plays that the other team started with the ball than the rest of the competition combined so far this year. So, of course, that means Brisbane are still overrated in my book. Manly was a team who I thought was overrated, and you go back to me betting on New Zealand against Manly, but probably my misread there as well was New Zealand was not the side I believed a month ago. But now Manly's not overrated, right? In fact, there's probably very few people backing Manly. I would be very curious if anyone in the comments is on Manly this week. I don't think there'll be many of you out there. So if you are someone who's actually gone, plus 11.5, I might take the Seagulls. I'd love to hear kind of like what your reasoning would be. Therefore, Brisbane's clearly the obvious side, and I'm not likely to fall on that side, but I do lean to the Broncos. If I had to play this, I would play the minus 11.5. While I take away a little bit from Brisbane in terms of just like unsustainable attack, the defense has been awesome too. And that is much more repeatable. You know what? I'm not going to play this game. Clarkie, we've got Origin, in a couple of weeks. As a Queenslander, I can't risk Reece Walsh getting injured again. And you know that if I play Brisbane this week, you know exactly what will happen, just like it did last time I played Brisbane. So Queenslanders following along, you can rejoice that I'm passing on the game.
That's a smart tip right there, mate. We need Walshy, absolutely. For me in this one, so the Seagulls have only won one of their 4 games at Magic Round, and they have lost their last 4 in a row at Suncorp Stadium. Of course, they are the home side, but usually the Broncos would be there. So I think that is a relevant venue stat for this game here. Without Tom Trbojevic, the Manly Seagulls have only won 34% of their games over the past 5 seasons. And as you said, unfortunately, he has been out a fair bit. So we do have a bit of data over those 5 years there. You put all that together, and just simply, I cannot come up with a reason to tip Manly here. They've been poor in their last 2 games, and I think the Broncos are the only logical tip here. Both sides do score the same amount of points on average this year, but Manly do concede more as the Broncos do have the better defense. And what's concerning about Manly not only allowing teams to score more on them is how teams are doing it. As you said, the Warriors come back. We've seen the Raiders come back, and we've seen other sides, the Dolphins come back against them this year, and that is concerning against a Broncos side who can and does score from anywhere on the field at times through the X factor of Ezra Mam, Reece Walsh, etc. I do have another tip in this game. Selwyn Cobbo has scored the first try in his last 2 games against Manly, and in those 2 games, he went on to score hat tricks as well. That was on the wing. He is in the centres now, but he is kind of pushing his case, I would say, for the Queensland Maroons to be in that squad somewhere, more likely on the wing. Origin's just around the corner. He's home at Suncorp. He's got great form against his team. So I'm going to offer Selwyn Cobbo as a try scorer tip here. And I think the Broncos do cover that line as well.
And Maddie says Broncos are bullies too, which I agree with. But the thing is, Manly are at their best when they get on top of a team. But can you see Manly doing much bullying? Like, this is like 2 bullies in a fight, but one is clearly a much bigger bully at this point in time. And Clarky, you can read The Undertaker, because we know he is a passionate Manly fan. You can read his other comment as well in terms of what Manly does when playing with a lead.
Unfortunately, I'm too young to understand that, but I think I know the reference. But...
All right, we'll read it out and then see what our viewers make of it.
We do to Leeds what Monica Lewinsky did to Bill Clinton. That's for everyone that's listening to the podcast and not watching. That was commented by the great Undertaker.
Probably, at least, you might have to be at least 30 years old to remember that.
Is it the one where he says, I did not have sexual relations with that woman? Was that president?
That's it.
Alrighty, so I am aware
of it. You can use your imagination.
You can. And you know what? It is time to not only announce the 1 Better Same Game multi, but 2 Better Same Game multis. Don't forget, Friday Night Footy also means an exclusive Better Same Game multi crafted by Winnie himself. This unit did profit 20 units in 2023. We've been very close the last few weeks, just missing out on some of them there. Don't forget, Better also provides further talk and analysis on the NRL and the Fox Sports Lab, which you can check out on their YouTube channel each Wednesday. And always importantly, think, is this a bet you really want to place? For free and confidential advice, call the number or visit the website in the show description.
And trust me, no one wants to hear very close, right? But not only have several lost by 1 leg, but like last week, $10 odds, it wins if Penasini or Russell score. Penasini's going, like, he's a strong player, like he's a really great finisher as well, but he's denied slightly losing control of the ball in a one-on-one tackle by Ezra Mam, and Russell dropped it with the try line begging as well. And it's $10 odds. But the bigger point is just look at the odds that we're able to get compared to what it would be if you say you tried to build something similar elsewhere. Because I am not putting my crystal ball to the test and saying, who scores and what's the margin and what's the points. I'm really just looking at what's the likelihood of this occurring and what odds can we get. And so what I can ensure is that it's going to be a great price.
That's what we like. We like value and we like great prices. If anyone's wondering why my words sound a bit funny, I was at the dentist today and I had about 6 needles and my tongue is swollen. So I'm doing my absolute best. Sorry if I pause there on some words. Alrighty, game 3, Saturday, 3 p.m. My Titans taking on the Knights. The line is set at -3.5 in the Knights' favour. They welcome
Let me
back
correct you right there. 6.5 it is right now. And Tristan alluded to that being the biggest move since team lists, which you've grabbed that graphic just before the teams were announced. So 6.5.
That's right, yeah. When I prepare for the show, it is before team list because we do have that short sort of time frame from 4 p.m. to 5:30 to be here live.
Yes.
So that line has moved significantly, and that is because the Titans have Sam Verrills and Chris Randall as their halves, 2 hookers as their halves. Philip Sami and Harley Smith-Shields are also out, so Aaron Schott and Alofiana Khan-Pereira comes in. Aaron Clark goes to hooker, whereas for the Knights, they have a much more settled lineup. Gamble is out injured, Jack Hogger comes in, and the Saifidi brothers swap. One returns from injury as one gets suspended. Interesting point about this game, Winnie, is I think this goes back about 13 games now, where when these two sides meet, if it's at McDonald Jones, the Knights win. If it's at Seabus, the Titans win. But they do meet now on a neutral venue. Titans come into it having won 2 of their last 5. The Knights are 3 of their last 5, with those 3 wins being a win streak. So who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I made that note as well that you lose one Saifidi, you gain another. Look, the Knights, I'd have to say they've surprised me the last 3 weeks with very similar gritty wins over the Finns, the Warriors, and the Tigers. And they won all those games by just 1 try, but all deservingly as well. It's not a team. Newcastle is not a team that looks to me like they can play any better. They already look to me like they're beating the opponent in effort areas and they're completing at a higher rate. So those aren't really things you can lift any higher. And that's understandable. There's a ceiling on this team with no Kalen Ponga. So if the Titans can, say, match the effort and the efficiency, they'll go a long way to having a chance of winning this game and certainly can cover the +6.5, as the Titans have done for 6 straight games, which is I'm sure has to be the longest winning streak against the spread in the whole competition. The issue is I can't touch the Titans this weekend. As you said, yikes. Verrills and Randall in the halves. I actually don't believe they'll line up like that. You'd know better than me, but Tom Weaver is in the reserves.
Yeah, but he's injured at the moment. I think he's just there by nature of we don't have anyone else. Yeah.
So what do you think the halves could be? Like, just really quickly, do you think that is possible?
Well, because it's past round 11, you actually can use reserve grade players. So I thought we'd go someone like Kyle Foxwell, who's 27 years old and plays for our feeder club in the Ipswich Jets, but they didn't go that way. So
he wasn't named in the reserves.
No, he wasn't in our extended bench, so I'm not sure.
Could Weaver be all right? Potentially?
Yeah, there is a possibility he could recover. I think his was I think his might have been a wrist injury as well, actually. But fingers crossed he is there because Titans do need at least one genuine half in this one.
Yeah, because you bet you have 4 good options to play 1, 6, and 7. Sorry, 3 good options. But your first 4 options were Jaden Campbell, AJ Brimson, Kieran Foran, and Tanner Boyd. None of them are available. So you back up halves and fullback, like third string in some spots. That's cluster injuries in obviously the most key positions. And of course, if you shift both your hookers to the halves, then you're down to a backup starting 9 as well. The Knights might not have the upside, but they're still a more complete team and deserve to be at least 6 points favoured over you. Probably a little bit more, but then you bring the line down a little bit for the Queensland factor, I would say. And some neutrals probably on the Titans, but just more so the Queensland fans, I do believe, get behind the Queensland teams. So therefore, I think the line is justified and I've passed. I'd be playing the Knights if it was still 3.5. I'm not sure too. So which one of those injuries were not known before team lists?
So I don't think people...
why the line moved 3 points after team lists, because I thought we knew Brimson, Foran were gone.
Yeah, I certainly knew. I can only think people assumed maybe the Titans had some more depth there and that there would be some genuine halves at least playing there. But I think anytime you name 2 hookers in the halves, you're going to get a pretty significant line move there, and that's what we saw.
But my point is that if people did know that this morning, then really the bet would have been to play Newcastle before the teams got listed, because there's no new information. It's not like there's a surprise like, oh, geez, I didn't realize Fodawaker's also out, that type of thing. Then you'd expect a line move. Like the line really should only move after team lists if unknown information becomes available. But it does go to show the market is not perfectly efficient, and therefore there are opportunities for people. Not one that was available to us, but just my observation.
Yeah, no, definitely. If I wasn't a Titans fan, I would have been interested in that line for the Knights, certainly. Looking at this one from statistics wise, both sides are averaging exactly 17 points each so far this season. The Knights do concede 9 points less on average per game, but I think a lot of that is due to the Titans and how they started the season, conceding 60-plus points in their first 2 games. And I think it is fair to say that both sides could be considered defensive sides, despite that deficit in the stats there. And I make that assessment based on the Titans' last 4 or 5 weeks, where they've been really, really good now. Typically, I don't actually think the Knights' style of game, which is at the moment is high completions and a patient approach while Kalen Ponga's out, I don't think that really suits against the Titans, who have shown now they can turn up against attacking sides like the Cowboys, Storm, Warriors, etc. in their last 3. But with that being said, it's just tough to look at that Titans lineup and see where are the points going to come from, where is the composure and building the pressure against the Knights going to come from, and you just can't see it with 2 hookers in the halves, unfortunately. It's one too many injuries for my liking, and because of that unavailable list of players, I actually think that Knights game plan now does work, and that style does work against the Titans. Just being patient, build pressure, and eventually the Titans with so many injuries are not going to be able to respond. So the Knights have won 3 of their last 4 against the Titans. I unfortunately am going to tip them to continue to do that here. The line sits in a very difficult spot, given in the last 5 games, the Titans games have been decided by 4 points or less. And that has been based on effort, but we don't know how they're going to look without halves. So really difficult line there to play.
Can I respond to some of these comments?
Please do.
Barney says it's a mid-off. Now, I feel like we had a reference before. You probably had to be over 30 to get that. Now, you probably have to be under 30 to know what a mid-off is. Where are you, Clark? How old are you again, Clarky? Well,
I'm 27.
Yes. So do you get that reference? Or is that...
I get it. Yeah, like mid, okay. Like a cap thing, like what the kids say.
There's not much respect there. Sieb says line out to 6.5, as we said. Colt reckons that Weaver will slip into the halves. But what I'm getting at with these comments, a lot of support for the Titans. Drunken Boxing, I'm going Titans. Ryan, I would lean Tits at the 6.5. James Graham says AOB is a super coach, but I dare say that's tongue-in-cheek. Drunken Boxing, no, Knights got no points in them. That's despite the fact they've won 3 in a row, and despite the fact Newcastle have won 3 in a row. JK says he's on Titans halftime, full-time. Knights are mud. Somebody else said it could just be bad opponents. That's the reason the Knights have won 3 in a row. Roran says that the NRL physio has named Gagai, Best, and Frizzell all in doubt. Like, all these things you're hearing are all going to suggest 6.5's a pretty solid play. Ryan says maybe some people switched off the Titans game after 20-0, so didn't, see the injuries. But the fact is the marketplace has to know, like, the available information, which was that none of those games finished. None of those players finished the game. And I was giving a hypothetical. Drunken Boxing. He says, what is Mo out to? I didn't know. No, I was saying, like, if an unknown important player was scratched or was not named at 4 p.m. today, then I could understand the line moving. But if everyone just saw the team list and said, oh, geez, those guys are out, I'm betting Newcastle, you missed the best of it when you could have taken that when you probably already should have known they were out. We'll get to, what's the next game we've got? Oh, the next game is probably game of the round. So there's a couple other comments coming through, but it's about other games. So let's move to the blockbuster of the weekend.
Perfect, mate. Can't wait for this one. Saturday, 5:30 p.m. It's the Sharks v Roosters. The line is set at -4.5 against the Roosters, who will be without Joey Manu. So Junior Ponga moves to the centres there. Brandon Smith returns. So again, the Roosters continue their streak since the 2019 grand final. They have not been full strength. Sharks have named Nico Hines, but he is in doubt. Braden Trindle has been named in reserves, and there's reports today via the Daily Telegraph that because his second sample is not available for his court date, he actually will be available to play here. So either way, the Sharks will have 2 halves on the park there. For me, this will be game of the round, Winnie. The Sharks come into this one having won all 5 of their last 5, whilst the Roosters are 4 out of 5 in that same period. These sides met last year and they went 1-1. So I expect a close match. Who do you prefer in this one and why?
Sorry, I feel like I just slightly missed what you said. And maybe I misread the situation myself. Trindle can play?
Yeah, that's what it's reported in the
wasn't
newspaper.
Named, was he? I thought they
No,
named
but he's named in
Atkinson.
reserve, so he can always swap within 24 hours.
I didn't notice that one. Okay, so great pick up there.
One.
So he could actually come back in. I didn't notice that. Of course, one of the most important factors for this game is, are we certain Nico Hines is sweet? You know, if it was just calf tightness and he's likely to play, just because you'd hate to be on Cronulla in this one and then find out Nico's out again. But absolutely, this is the match of the round, as John Pierce says there. These are the two top points differential teams in the comp, so not to both top on the ladder because the Roosters have had some losses, but plus 116 points through 10 rounds for the Sharks, plus 115 points through 10 rounds for the Roosters. And you compare that to the rest of the competition, like Panthers are the third best team in points differential, and they are more than 40 points behind these two. The Roosters, as you say, regained Brandon Smith, but do lose Joey Manu. Sorry, something popped up on my screen. Maybe it seems like there could be an issue with Clarkie's YouTube page. Anyway, we'll figure that one out later. So you got both teams on absolute fire. For me, I felt like I could only look to the Roosters because I do see them as the superior side. But another neutral game, you know, they are favoured. And if they're favoured by a couple of points, just because they're better doesn't mean they're a play. You've got it up on the screen as 4.5. Like I wouldn't play the Roosters at 4.5, but it's 2.5 or 3.5 everywhere else, and those are virtually the same number. So if you want to play the Roosters, of course, lay the 2.5, 3.5. If you want to play the Sharks, take the 4.5. Maybe you get that happy middle there. I mean, Walker is one of the form players in the comp. Like he's looked unbelievable, but you got the Sharkies getting the monkey off their back that they can actually beat a contending team. And yeah, you look at the names like on both sides, like the Roosters form's been hard to ignore. I don't know if people will take away from the Sharks win because Melbourne had some outs and that sin bin was so bogus on Harry Grant. But this is what my final observation was like when I look at the Roosters on paper, like they look so good every week, don't they? Like Tedesco, Dom Young, Luke Keary, Waria Hargraves, Lindsay Collins, Angus Crichton, Victor Radley, Spencer Leniu, Brandon Smith. Now, I named all those guys, not that I'm saying they're all the best players, but they're all players that have played international, right? They're all players that have played Origin. They're all players that have kind of won comps. And I do think they're more so household names than the best players on the Sharks, the likes of Kennedy, Ramian, Mulatalo, Brayley, Nikora, Wilton, McInnes. But those guys, I'm telling you, those guys I just named on the Sharks are going just as well as the guys on the tricolours. So on paper, your mind might tell you that the Roosters are superior. I'm not certain it's by very much. It is also a rematch of the finals game last year, which I still to this day don't really know how the Sharks blew. Maybe there's slight revenge there, but reality is that the Roosters side's going to be bang up for a game against top of the ladder. So revenge kind of helps when it's that extra bit of motivation, but this is the biggest game of the round, and I think both sides will be highly motivated. If you want to play the Roosters at 2.5 now, the other advantage you have is the possibility that Hines could be withdrawn. But I kind of go the other way where I say I'm pretty sure Hines is playing. It sounds like it was precautionary that he didn't play last week. And Nico can basically earn the New South Wales 7 jersey with the news that Mitch Moses will be set back. I think Nico can grab that jersey with two hands with a big one if he can lead his team to victory in this one. So I circle all the way back around to just saying it's an absolute beauty of a game. And therefore, while I understand Roosters should be favourites, I think it's a fair line.
Yeah, I've got my fingers crossed Nico Hines here. I really want to see these two sides go at full strength. I am going to go Roosters here. I think they can snap the Sharks' winning streak based on what I've seen from them in their current 3-game winning streak. But I will say there is not another side right now that I wouldn't tip the Sharks against. It's only the Roosters. I would tip the Sharks against every single other side, in the competition right now. This will be an interesting game from the perspective that the Sharks concede the least amount of points of any side so far this season. And we know the Roosters are brilliant in attack from what we've seen. these last 3 weeks. So I think it could go one of two ways. Number one, the Roosters blitz them, and the Sharks are just unsure on how to respond because they haven't been put in that situation this year. Or number two, the Sharks continue to turn them away, and it's the Roosters who get frustrated like they have at times this year, push a pass too many, and come up with silly errors that they didn't need to do. I think it was the Manly game they did that, and they really did pay for it. I'm going to go for option one. I think Justin Holbrook is a brilliant attacking coach, and his system and structures appear to have been implemented really well these last 3 weeks. I think the Roosters have scored 130 plus points in that time. The Roosters have won 8 of their past 9 against the Sharks. Their only loss in those 9 came last year, which I believe was the game we were watching live on TikTok together.
You're right. Yes.
It was that one. And it is also Daniel Tupou's 250th NRL game. Fresh off re-signing with the club for another year. I can see I was going to say moral, but I know you don't like that word. I can see a milestone try for him, and I can see the Roosters covering the line as well in this one for my tip. Alrighty, final game.
We'll get. Zach Brown says he's on Sharks to win the minor premiership at $3 with the Roosters and Panthers, as well as Broncos and Eels. So, like a pretty tough month ahead, but then a super easy run home, says Zach. And of course, they're already 8-1, so he likes that. You know, if I was going to execute a bet like that, I would say that's fine, but I would actually wait right until the final hour before kickoff on Saturday and make sure Nico's playing this week. Because if Nico's confirmed in, that line could tighten up, but the minor premiership market's not going to move. But if you play the minor premiership market today, there's, a few days between now and Saturday, Nico gets ruled out and the Sharks are suddenly out to 280 or, whatever in this game. And, it can be the difference in a minor premiership. So it's just slight advice when it comes to executing a bet like that. But I can also see in the comments plenty of people making a case for both sides, including a comment there saying that that Hines still yet to train, which would be concerning for Sharks backers.
Yeah, he didn't train today. He did 3 laps of the field and then went in and did weights instead.
That's right. I read that. Just did the gym session. But so it is risk, and potentially I would go as far to say the reason Toppy's at 4.5, not 3.5, is they are just building in Nico possibly being out. So that's the advantage you get if you do play the shortest available line on the Roosters.
Great stuff there. Right, final game we'll get your thoughts on for today's show. Saturday, 7:45 p.m. It's the Rabbitohs v Cowboys, and the line is set at -8.5 against the Cowboys, who welcome back Murray Taulagi and Jordan McLean. For the Rabbitohs, they welcome back Alex Johnston and Jacob Gagai on the wings, and the GOAT Tane Milne also returns for them. All right, Winnie, I present to you the inaugural Magic Round Spoon Bowl. Both of these sides come to this game having lost their last 5 in a row. These sides are 1-1 in their last 2 games. Who have you got taking away the woodenware in this one and why?
You're really feeling yourself. You're sitting there as a Titans fan and calling to other teams playing off as the Spoon Bowl. Who would have thought, honestly, because this is 9th and 10th from last year, and you really would have, they thought last year was disappointing. So I'll just update the graphic. As you said, I'm giving my full in-depth analysis of the first 5 games, and this being the 5th of 5. So I do only have one best bet on those 5 games, which I've shared on the doggies. But still, I can give my full analysis of this, and then we'll go a little faster through Sunday. You're still going to give people the information. I'm sorry. I know that will annoy some people. But part of it as well, I felt like I actually did spend a bit longer on each game, not consciously, but I wasn't going to rush it. And we've got this second show for Thursday. Plenty of time to get a bet or 2 in for Sunday. So as for this one, I'll tell you, this might have been my closest to another best bet, and it would have been probably South's first half. Really contemplated the 4.5 start with Souths, despite the fact they have lost 16 straight games against the spread, which is a 1 in 60,000 probability. I can't really figure out either of these teams, in terms of how the personnel just does not match the output. But the Cowboys playing with no urgency in the Finns game and the Titans game until it was all too late. So they're showing desperation to win, but only once the other team's well in front. Does that change now? The season is really slipping away fast for North Queensland if it hasn't already. As for Souths, you kind of feel like the season's already gone. So that's the issue here is there clear motivation for Souths? You know, I hear him talking about it's Whiten's 250th this week. Yeah, but it was Walker's 200th last week. It wasn't clear to me that the game meant everything to Souths. Having said that, I said it on Sunday. South Sydney's not a dead team. It's too early in the year to just completely let go of the rope. And Souths were not as far away last week against St. George as the score is going to suggest, which is why I actually gave them strong consideration this week. But I suppose I come back to the fact that, yeah, the Cowboys are the better team. You know, you'd rate who do you want to be on, like Drinkwater or Latrell? Like Latrell Mitchell might be a better player than Drinkwater, but he's not going better right now. Dearden or Cody Walker? You know, I think I want the Queensland-based players there. And I think North Queensland's got the better pack. And you actually got to start thinking about origin spots as well. And I reckon that a lot of these Cowboys players on the back of such poor form have really got to step up and have a big one to secure, you know, their origin prospects. And you even mentioned Selwyn Cobbo earlier. Murray Taulungi's back this week, you know, and like Xavier Coates is going to get one of the wing spots for Queensland. So 3 doesn't go into 2. So maybe Cobbo could play centre, but the Hammer's back this weekend too. He's the incumbent centre. So players like this, as well as a few in the forward pack, really want to put their best foot forward, even if the team is struggling. If there was ever a game for North Queensland to turn it on, you kind of think the Magic Round occasion. Queensland fans love the Queensland players. And I do recall it was last year, you know, where the Cowboys were like a 10-point underdog and rolled the Roosters at Magic Round as well. So I feel like that was probably a greater likelihood, which just kept me off Souths. But of course, I lost betting on South last week, but I was actually kind of proud of myself because my style is I want to take the ugliest team. I don't think anybody can possibly lose that many times against the spread because the spread keeps on getting updated and adapting, and people keep on going against those teams, and it's going to inflate the other way, usually way before we get to this point. But what I will say for myself is that bet last week was the first time I played on South Sydney all season long. So at least I kind of learned my lesson from last year where I thought they'd come home hot. They did not. That was the first time I played them last week. And I honestly, I know a lot of others don't see it that way, but I felt it was a reasonable play last week that didn't go my way. And I'm not going to be shocked if South Sydney wins this game either. That's the sad part.
Mate, that is bold for me. I know on this show we typically avoid the overs-unders markets because that is also bold and unpredictable. But if I can just point out, these sides are averaging a combined 51 points conceded so far this year, and both sides do have solid attack and strike. Like Drinkwater is a weapon, as is Latrell Mitchell that you said.
Say that again. Sorry. They're averaging what?
So together, these sides are averaging a combined 51 points together. So
yeah,
if they're getting
like
51 scored against them.
Conceded each.
Exactly right, man. And I just think that like this could be a real high scorer here. The Rabbitohs have only won 5 of their last 22 games now. And most of those games have been against real low-lying competition with respect. Dragons and Tigers last year. I think Titans were in there as well. Teams like that. And I don't quite have the Cowboys in that tier of really, you know, bottom-dwelling sides, despite losing their last 5 in a row. Because you look at the Cowboys' last 3. All of those games were there for the taking. Like they were within reach if they played a little bit better. So for that reason, I'm going to tip the Cowboys. I'm not confident either side here can respond defensively. But if it does come down to an attacking shootout, I know the Cowboys can score more points than the Rabbitohs based on what we've seen so far this year. Where the positives come for the Rabbitohs, they are undefeated at Magic Round, and it is also Jack Whiten's 250th NRL game. So that's some positives for them. But the Cowboys have beaten them in 7 of their last 8 games. So if I've got a bet here, I like the Cowboys head-to-head. And I do have another try scorer for everyone. Jeremiah Nanai, he's a Queenslander, so he loves Suncorp Stadium. He has scored 7 tries in his past 5 games at this venue, and he has also scored a double in his past 2 NRL games. With Origin approaching, I think his form will continue to rise. And if I am expecting a high-scoring contest here, I think he's one that will cross the chalk for a try.
there's multiple edge players who could, because I always look at Lukey as well and Finny Fuaki. So, but you can't go past Nana, like a dynamic player that I do expect to be right edge forward for Queensland. More comments, Ryan. I don't want to bet on either of these teams. Jeff, Cowboys were a hard watch last week. Undertaker, rudderless versus gutless. Colt, this game's a dog's breakfast, staying away. And sometimes the dog's breakfast, it makes sense to actually take the underdog because you got no real trust in the favourite, though BKR does say cows are due. What, and Souths aren't? Ryan says, like the two-part pods, give me something to look forward to on Thursday. No game. Women's Origin is on, but you are right to a degree that NRL round starting at a day late. It is a good opportunity for us to put in a special pod, but also equally importantly, to bring in some new voices. Just hear some other people who dedicate the whole year to breaking down the games and sharing bets and hearing how they see it. So I'll definitely take a back seat and just try and showcase what these other guys know, and they got to be going better than me right now. But at the same time, I'll share my in-depth handicap on the Sunday games and if I've got a best bet on any of them. John, game as a basket case. Sir Francis says Hines still 2 to 3 seasons away from Origin ready. I mean, won the Dally M, last year? Was it the year before now? No, it was 2 years ago. Wouldn't necessarily agree with that one. Undertaker, if it wasn't for Souths, we'd all be talking about how awful the Cowboys are against the spread. So that gets you thinking, when was the last time the Cowboys covered a line? They did blow somebody out. Let me think now. Somebody
round
else
one, Dolphins, definitely.
Yeah, definitely round one. You're going back to they didn't cover the line in like round 4 against the Titans. So I don't remember if the Cowboys have covered since round 4.
Oh, they have, yeah. Round 8 against Panthers. I was on Panthers minus 7.5, and they only lost by 6.
Yes, okay, backdoor. And they were down 20, and they fought back. So that's fair, but I suppose that's probably only one cover since round 4, and the Cowboys deserved that cover, to be fair. They fought back and had a chance to win at the end, but not a profitable team to back against the spread. Neither have Souths been. And James not only says Souths are a funk, but I remember James said the trend is your friend, so you don't go against trends. He was alluding to just keep on backing against Souths until it doesn't work for you.
I almost learned that the hard way at the casino the other weekend when red was hot and I just stuck on black to my process. I would have made a lot of money. Alrighty, I'm going to, we're just almost coming up on that hour mark, guys. I actually have prepared my notes for all the Sunday games. I won't read them all out. I'll just quickly breeze through these games for you all. Game 6 is at Sunday, 1:50 p.m. It's the Warriors v Panthers. The line is set at minus 10.5 for the Panthers. In this one, I'm looking at two sides that are missing their chief halfback, one being Nathan Cleary, one being Sean Johnson. And so like I did last week in the Eels-Broncos game, I'm going to lean to the team who's shown me they can compete without their main man. And of course, that is the Penrith Panthers, who have rested and been without Nathan Cleary due to injury a fair bit over the last 3 years, actually. They concede less points than the Warriors. They score more. So if the data likes the Panthers in this one, if you are going for the Warriors, you're looking for reasons why you think they're going to respond. The only thing I could really come up with is it's Dallin Watene-Zelezniak's 200th NRL game. I don't think that's too big of a factor. And the Warriors, in terms of getting up or responding to adversity, I thought they've almost missed that boat because it has been 5 losses in a row now. Meanwhile, the Panthers have won their last 8 in a row over the Warriors, and the Warriors have lost their last 3 straight at Magic Round. So I do like the Panthers in that one.
I'll say is, what a shame. Probably the biggest shame of the weekend is just the Warriors falling off a cliff and this not being one of the marquee games of the weekend, which it should have been. And I feel a bit bad for Warriors fans that may even be making the trip, but you never know. Last year, people didn't give the Warriors much chance, and they did give Penrith everything they could handle at Magic Round. It was a Saturday game, Magic Round 2023.
I think the game's better when the Warriors are traveling well, so that's all we want to see is them getting back to that form we saw last year. And next game's at Sunday, 4 p.m. It's the Storm v Eels. The line is set at minus 10.5 against the Storm. These sides come into it with completely opposite form. The Storm have lost 1 of their last 5. The Eels have won 1 of their last 5. And I like the Storm here. I think they're the kind of club that responds well to adversity. For that reason, we don't see them lose 2 in a row all too often. I know it did occur a few times last year, but historically, they don't do it very often. And Craig Bellamy was not only disappointed, he actually challenged if the game meant enough to his team. And I remember last year, there was a few times where Craig really challenged his team in that post-game presser and they responded. So I do expect them to do well here. They love playing at Suncorp Stadium. They've mixed their form recently, winning 3 of their last 5, but they did go on an undefeated run of 13 in a row from 2017 to 2021 there. And they also have a number of big game players that turn up for big occasions, which I think Magic Round represents. Your Cameron Munsters and your Harry Grants most notably. That's also evidenced in their 4 games at Magic Round so far, where they scored 126 points, which is the highest points scored of any team at the event to date. They score 4 more points on average than the Eels so far this year, and they concede an average of 8 less. So for me, it's a no-brainer. All the stats point to the Storm here. I believe they'll have too much for them, and I believe they'll cover that line as well.
And I've highlighted Zach Brown's comment there. He says, Eels beat Storm. This will get you off the ice-cold run, Winnie. Lock of the century. For what it's worth, Zach, from my communications I've had with him, he is 100% on his tips this season. The vast majority, he only tells me after the game, and as usually when I was wrong, and then tells me that he was on the other team and it was a really easy win. But in fairness, I said to him, mate, I'd love to hear your opinions before the games. And this week, for the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time I saw Zach share the tip before the game. He took Cronulla to beat the Storm, and they did win, and the 100% remains true. Now, this is pretty bold. Eels to beat Storm outright. Be very careful, guys. I scolded Colt for using the M word. I also don't like the word lock. But there's Zach's opinion before the game. Respect it.
There is no such thing as a lock when it comes to gambling, unfortunately. All right, final game of the round is at Sunday, 6:25 p.m. It's the Tigers v Dolphins. The line is set at -8.5 against the Dolphins. In this one, these sides have actually met twice prior. The Tigers won by 1 point in 2023, and they met earlier this year in round 5. Recent form has the Tigers losing their last 5, whilst the Dolphins have won 3 in that period. Every single stat here goes the way of the Dolphins, and you guys know I love to tip that way. Form-wise, they average almost double the points scored than the Tigers do, and they also concede less. My mind is going one of 2 ways here. Number one, the Dolphins' opponent have let them back into the game these last 2 weeks in the Cowboys and Manly, and I shouldn't be as high on them as I am. And the Undertaker kind of replicated that last week when he said that they're a fraud team in the top 4. But number 2, Winnie, is it's time I start respecting the Dolphins and treat them as a top 4 side and stop doubting them. And my mind was one of 2 ways when previewing this game of which way I should go. And I landed on Tigers at the line for my tip. These sides were only 1 try apart when they met earlier this year in round 5. And since then, this Dolphins lineup has gotten slightly weaker due to some injuries, most notably without Thomas Flegler still. I'm going to ignore the stats here. It is Api Coruscant's 200th NRL game, and the skipper does mean a lot to that young side. The Tigers, young forwards and young players really do look up to Api. So I think they will get up for that. They've also won 3 of their 4 Magic Round games to date, and there were some upsets in there as well, mind you. Now, I am very nervous tipping the Tigers here. The Dolphins do score the most tries per game on average of any team in this competition, and it is their home venue at Suncorp. But I just have a feeling I can see the Tigers turning up here, putting in 2 solid halves of footy. Last week they played good in the second half. The week before that it was good in the first half. I just got a feeling when they can turn up, put 2 halves together finally, snap this losing streak, and if not, at least keep it close enough to be there at the line. So my tip is Tigers at the line.
And just because I'm reserving my judgment, I'm going to skip to a comment that's about a game on Saturday that I've put on the screen. Roaring Knights Titans under 45.5. He likes that, and Ryan co-signs that one too. You got a Knights team that's played all unders games since Kalen has been out, and you got a Titans team that's missing first choice at every position of the spine. So the daytime conditions showcase, teams want to play a exciting brand of footy, but I certainly would not be on the overs, I tell you that. So I like that observation. Again, guys, Magic Round preview extravaganza, looking at probably 6:30 p.m. Thursday night. Clarkey getting the night off and being at the Women's Origin game. But Nicole's going to join the show, and you know that he loves to talk try scorers, and that's his perspective. So we'll get a bunch of try scorer angles for each game. 1 or 2 other well-known NRL tipsters from the pod community that I will make you wait and see. My handicap of games 6, 7, and 8, the Sunday triple header, which are also the games we'll be watching at the punt party. In fact, exciting opportunity, guys. If you're watching this or listening and you are thinking, I'd love to come to the punt party, you've heard a little bit about it, check the TryPod group. I shared a bit more information there. I'm going to give you a chance to win an invite right now. It's going to be a guessing competition, so you're going to need to comment on this YouTube video. If you're not watching this on YouTube right now, you want to go to the TryPod YouTube and drop a comment. And what you need to comment, and it's one per entry, who will win Women's Origin Thursday night, right? The winning state, the exact margin, the amount of points they win by, and the exact total points, which I'll also use as a tiebreaker. Nearest prediction will get an invite to the pod party. So chuck that in the comments. Just one thing, if you are watching on YouTube right now, don't put it in the live chat. Put it in the comments on the video, if that makes sense. I've already mentioned I got not one but 2 epic SGMs on Better that I'm going to share on Thursday. I'll actually get to share them on a pod with my reasoning. A mixed matchup, again, I'll share with my reasoning on Thursday, and an additional exclusive creative market with Toppy, in addition to the ones you guys will get the chance to formulate through Clarkie's post later tonight.
Mate, there is absolutely plenty going on. But at this point, we do want to say thank you very much to everyone for tuning in. We absolutely appreciate you spending your Tuesday nights with us. As Winnie said, be there on Thursday for his Magic Round extravaganza and have a great Magic Round weekend. We will see you for our recap show at a revised time. It will not be the typical 15 minutes after full time, as we'll both be away from our usual setups. But as soon as we have that information, it'll be posted in the TryPod Facebook group. So from myself again, thank you very much. And over to you, Winnie, to farewell the show.
Yeah, not long until you see me again, guys. As I said, with the special show on Thursday. So it's a special week. I hope that we can do it justice. But we've gone pretty in-depth so far and given you lots of talking points for the games ahead. Can't wait for this weekend. I hope that we can make it a clear point of demarcation in the season where we can start bringing back some positivity, and that starts with me finding more winners. And not only have I got the one best bet with the pending part 2 for the Sunday games, but with that many other markets and SGMs that I've got to cook, lots more opportunities to find some juicy winners as well. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks as always. So let me know in the comments, especially my best bet. Are you on it? Are you against it? And anything else that's standing out to you. Back in 48 hours. Clarkie, safe travels up here, mate, and can't wait to catch up with you at Pump Party, as well as other people who might be coming to Pump Party who are watching right now. That's going to be fantastic. And good luck if you are commenting as I put on the screen. Women's Origin winner, exact margin, and total points. That's on the YouTube, which is a TryPod NRL betting podcast. That is the YouTube channel. And you might just be able to come and hang out with us as well. Have a great week until then. And